State your name, please, and who you represent and your position on the bill.
Amy Hedtke. I am representing myself, and I am against this bill. Merging of education, state funding, and mental health is a very dangerous thing to start. I'd posit that the rise of mental health issues in schools is an inherent problem of the institutionalization of children and won't be cured by these bills. Yesterday, a gentleman testified that the suicide rate is higher during the school year. That's not a coincidence. There are multiple federal and state laws that are already expanding state longitudinal data systems to collect and share personally identifiable data on our children. Essentially, all data collected on students from preschool through the workforce will follow them the rest of their lives. The main proponent of a lot of these mental health legislation bills wants universal mental health screening, and the governor's own 44-page school safety plan identified mental screenings as part of his agenda. This is essentially a backdoor red flag program. The law enforcement testified this past summer that Texas already has the authority to involuntarily commit someone to a mental health facility for assessment and treatment for 48 hours. That doesn't include weekends. And the representative was right. These are very, very complicated. There's no concrete answers in the field of mental health. They're not all caused by tumors, and there's no blood test for mental illness. On a personal level, as one of many Texans who are politically active and have children in public schools, I'm very concerned about the expansion of mental health care into the school system. Psychiatry possesses a built-in capacity for abuse that is greater than in other areas of medicine. The diagnosis of mental diseases allows the state to hold persons against their will and insist upon therapy in the broader interests of society. Licensed psychiatrists have been involved in human rights abuses in states across the world, including here in the United States. In addition to controlling political dissidents, other populations are at risk of psychiatric abuse. By 2011, antipsychotic drugs grossed over $18 billion a year in the U.S., making antipsychotics the highest grossing class of drugs. Much of this growth is attributable to the prescribing of antipsychotics to non-psychotic people in specific groups. These populations include foster children, the elderly in nursing homes, and inmates in prisons and jails, where antipsychotic drugs are an inexpensive way to subdue and manage them. Enter the K-12 public school population, an automatic, captive cash cow for the pharmaceutical and research industry. Did we catch the research potential of this bill? The children of Texas are not lab rats. The history of psychiatric abuse on minority populations is well documented, and it would be naive to assume that won't continue to happen. A previous witness said she hates to use the word eugenics because it's not a hypothetical thing. It is a stark reality, and no legal requirement to separate names from info is going to stop that. You guys don't need more psychiatrists in schools. You need to revamp your educational institutionalization of children and find a healthier way to implement public education. Your current system is killing your kids. The state has created the crisis that you're seeking to fix. Treating the symptoms with no understanding of the cause is negligence and harmful to children, which is exactly what many people are looking to do just so they can get access to federal grant money and students. In short, to address the underlying political agenda of these mental health bills, there is absolutely no evidence that the state of medical science in the mental health field allows us to identify future criminals or someone who is suicidal, nor do professionals in the field claim any such thing. Furthermore, if we establish a regime in which those diagnosed with mental illness may lawfully be denied their Second Amendment rights under red flag programs, there can be no doubt that prospective patients, their families, and even their physicians will be more reluctant than they are at present to be so diagnosed and identified. The fear of this stuff is real, not so much because of the social implications, but because of the legal implications. So y'all need to watch how you're proceeding on this stuff.
Members, any questions of Ms. Hedtke?
Miguel pulled the trigger and killed himself. And we don't know why Eli committed suicide. We don't know what the triggers were that caused those individuals to do those acts. This bill is designed to be research-driven, to try to come up with the answers to some of the whys that we don't know. And we're hopeful that through starting this research, that we're going to be able to go down the roads to unraveling some of the triggers that are causing these problems in the brains of children, the trauma, the suicide, and the other things that we have been talking about, and things that we don't even know yet. Just like when I was a teacher, they had never heard ADD and ADHD because they were not a part of the medical lexicon at that particular time. But I can tell you this, what do we have to lose? We are at zero now. Must we continue to set at zero because somebody is afraid of research and trying to find help? I dare think of what would have happened when the person may find the research and some of the answers to polio and syphilis and gonorrhea. If they had sat down and done nothing, just think where we would be today. We're not trying to take anybody's children, and we're not trying to force medication on anybody. We're trying to do two things. We're trying to help that child develop what we consider in this society a normal mind, so that they would be able to develop to their potential. And the bill that we're talking about passing on funding public education, we want to be able for them to benefit from public education today with a healthy mind. Who you're representing and your position on the bill, and proceed.
Yes, Amy Hedtke, representing myself, and I am for this bill. I would like to see it just decriminalized altogether so that there's no registration or anything like that. But I wanted to address something else. Ma'am, you had asked earlier what are people afraid of in research? And what do we have to lose?
Pardon me, please.
You had the gall to reference syphilis research, like the horrific research on 600 black men in Tuskegee who were lied to and intentionally not treated.
That's not the bill before us, ma'am.
No.
This is how.
But when you make a statement like that, it needs to be called out. If you can't recognize the pitfalls in research and how dangerous it can be, somebody needs to point it out publicly. Research has a long history of major problems. People died from this stuff. Don't do that.